Genealogy from Adam to Noah in the beginning, when the world was still young and the memory of Eden was fresh in human history. The story of humanity started to unfold through generations. The genealogy from Adam to Noah ISN T just a list of names it's S a sweeping narrative of fathers, sons, great ages, human choices, and God's unfolding plan. 1. Adam the beginning. Adam, the first man, lived outside Eden carrying both the memory of paradise and the weight of the fall. He worked the ground, raised a family, and watched the world multiply from nothing. Adam lived 930 years, long enough to see his grandchildren's grandchildren. From Adam came his sons Cain, Abel, and later Seth, the child through whom the godly line would continue. 2. Seth, a new start. Seth arrived after the tragedy between Cain and Abel. Eve said, "God has granted me another seed in place of Abel." Seth carried hope, a reminder that even after human failure, God continued his plan. Seth lived 912 years, and during his time people began to call on the name of the Lord again. His son was Enosh, marking the third generation of humanity. 3. Enosh, calling on the Lord. Enosh grew in a world where people were not just surviving, they were learning to worship, to build families, to spread across the earth. His line represented those who tried to stay close to God. He lived 905 years, and his son Kenan carried the promise forward. 4. Kenan generations rooted in faith. Kenan lived 910 years, teaching his sons and grandsons about the God of their ancestors. Life was simple but long, and the early generations stayed near their family line. Kenan's son was Mahalalel. 5. Mahalo, a legacy continues. Mahalo lived 895 years. His time saw human society slowly growing, more families, more settlements, and the early shaping of human culture. His son was Jared, marking another step in the unfolding story. 6. Jared, a long life in a changing world. Jared lived an astonishing 962 years. During his lifetime, the world grew bigger, louder, and more complex. The perfection of Eden had faded far into the past, and the human heart was beginning to drift. Jared's greatest legacy was his son Enoch, the man whose life would become one of the most remarkable stories of all time. 7. Enoch, the man who walked with God. Enoch is one of the most unique figures in the early genealogy. While others lived hundreds of years, Enoch lived only 365 years, not because he died early, but because something extraordinary happened. The Bible simply says, Enoch walked with God and he was not, or God took him. In a world that was slowly becoming more corrupt, Enoch stood out. He lived in deep fellowship with God, and instead of experiencing death, he was taken into God's presence. His life became a symbol of what it means to walk faithfully. Enoch's son Methuselah would carry the line forward. 8. Methuselah, the oldest man ever. Methuselah holds a record that still stands 969 years, the longest lifespan ever recorded. His name has echoed through history as a sign of God's patience with humanity. Interestingly, according to the timeline, the very year Methuselah died is the year the flood came, a reminder that God delayed judgment as long as mercy allowed. Methuselah's son was Lamech, the father of a child who would change the world. 9. Lamech, a father with a prophecy. Lamech lived 777 years and saw the world sinking into violence and wickedness. People were multiplying, but corruption multiplied with them. Lamech sensed that something was coming, something huge, something divine. When his son was born, he named him Noah, saying, "He will comfort us concerning the work and toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed." His words were prophetic. Noah would become the turning point of human history. 10. Noah hope in a corrupt world. By the time Noah grew up, the world had fallen far from God. Violence filled the earth. People ignored God's ways, living only for corruption and self-destructive desires. But one man stood out. The Bible describes him as a righteous man, blameless among his generation. While the world embraced darkness, Noah chose faith, and through him God would preserve humanity. By Noah's time, 10 generations had passed from Adam. Each generation showed the widening gap between humans and God, but also the thin, steady line of faith that had never fully disappeared.